their nervous system is functioning. So at that point, if we look back at the types after week 16, so this would be by week 16, they perform dilation and evacuations, which is where they go in and they crush the skull. They can feel that. They did a ultrasound, which you can hear, of somebody having an abortion, and you could hear the baby crying. So the nervous system, they have nerve endings. When they reach month 5, all of the movements can be felt. They have hair. Month 6, they have finger and toe prints. If they're born prematurely by month 6, there's a low chance of survival, but it's possible. By month 7, they have fat reserves. They can hear. They change positions. They respond to stimuli. And if they're born prematurely by month 7, their chances of survival are high. By month 8, their side is fully developed, and everything except their lungs, body organ-wise, are developed. And then by month 9, their lungs are nearly fully developed, and they drop down for birth. And at that point, I think, if we were to talk about third-term abortions, within your third term, there's no medical reason to have one that you wouldn't have previously known about. There's nothing that can be discovered within the last 3 months of your pregnancy that they wouldn't have seen before.
Is that based on testing? So is there certain testing that would have to occur?
Yeah, so like most of your amniotic testing and all of those things that they test for Down syndrome and issues like in their brain and their heart and ultrasounds and 340 ultrasounds and all of these things, echoes. I personally have a friend who had her first child had a heart issue. They can detect that by the first month of your second trimester.
Okay.
So anything that they're going to find that could have detrimental effects on the child's life, where they say, okay, your child's going to live for a year and they're going to have a horrible quality of life, they can tell you that your second trimester.
Gotcha.
You're not going to go to an appointment your 8th month of pregnancy and they'd be like, oh no, this just happened.
Right. It's just that they may not have tested for
Yeah.
them.
What did you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What did you find, if anything, about the prevalence of abortion among Christians? And then the flip side of that, what would you suggest would be a Christ-like approach to an unplanned pregnancy or to a woman who's had an abortion in the past?
We have statistics.
I don't think we have the statistics. Yeah, I don't have any specific ones on that.
Well, I'll offer that 70% of the people in the United States having abortions identify themselves as Christians. So with that in mind, what do you
About
think?
the rate for society as a whole, right? According to Barna.
And here in the Bible Belt.
Yeah. Oh,
Or
yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think, moral, I think what you talked about, you looked at the moral issue, what do you think a moral or in our case Christian approach to unplanned pregnancies and to women or men who have abortions in their past would be?
Well, that statistic really surprises me, actually. But as a Christian, I would say that the Bible clearly outlines the intrinsic value of life. And although it does not explicitly say abortion is not something we should be seeking after, I don't think God necessarily has to outline all of the things that we can't do as Christians to know that it is morally not in line with our worldview. In Matthew 18:4-6, God tells us that children are the most innocent and the purest of heart, and that we should hold them on a pedestal, basically. And it says in Psalm 139:13-16, God knit us together in our mother's womb. Jeremiah 1:5 says that he knew us before we were born. And Deuteronomy 32:39 says God is the author of life. It is I who bring life and death. In that, I think it's obvious that our value is infinite in his eyes, and that it's not our decision to be able to put a limit on that.
So you guys talked about some of the testing maybe that is occurring around the second trimester, things like that. What would you say to parents who maybe find out that their child does have Down syndrome, or perhaps even something worse, where maybe that child would have a very short life? In that case, is something like abortion.
So I believe that any trial that we go through can be used for a greater good, and that it can bring glory to him no matter what. So I don't think that there's any reason to end a life because of that, because there can be something good out of any evil. I would say that there's always other alternatives besides abortion, that adoption is always an alternative. And people say that there's already too many people in the adoption industry that they're not getting out and that they're suffering, or foster care, yeah, that it's just not a good place to be. And I agree with that. I don't think it's ideal, but I don't think that murder is the alternative.
I know, coming from from a Christian standpoint, but also like a medical and just a person standpoint, I have a younger brother who has Down syndrome. And although he struggles and he's in public school and he has a hard time and he doesn't understand what everything, what all is happening. He's 13 and he doesn't understand exactly what's happening. But I couldn't imagine, and my mom is from Brazil, and when she found out that he was going to have Down syndrome, they offered an abortion, and I couldn't imagine, not having him in my life. If she would have been like, okay, I don't want to deal with this, and they told her, it's going to be difficult, life is going to be, way different for you. But when it comes to like more severe cases like osteogenesis or something where they do have really painful lives, there's ways around that, and I think any value of life, like God has a reason for everything, and I think when it comes down to, I feel like it's selfish, because there isn't, even if their quality of life, it may not be long and it may not be wonderful. They have medications, they have things to prevent life from being horrible, and you hear stories all of the time of kids born with painful situations, and they live long lives, or they maybe don't live a long life, but they make a huge difference in their family and their community. And they're, like she said, there's value in everything, and everything's done for a purpose.
And he's a cool little dude, by the way.
I have like a neighbor who has to feel she had two kids already, and then like when she was pregnant for the third one, she found out that he had like really severe autism. Like they thought that he wasn't even nonverbal and everything, and like she decided to actually have him, and like we've worked with him a lot, like him like speech therapist and like me too, like playing with him, just like interacting with him. He's verbal. There's some things he doesn't understand, but despite like the things he doesn't understand, he's like the sweetest person in the world. Like I'll go, Kate, like I'll ask him how you have a hug, and he'll like just give you the biggest hug ever. And I don't think just because like someone has autism or Down syndrome that's like right to have an abortion to end their lives.
If I can just asking so that I can offer a personal anecdote. So when we were pregnant with Eve, who was our second daughter, fairly early on they told us that she was going to have cystic fibrosis. And we went to a variety of specialists every week and kept checking on that and kept telling us she's going to have cystic fibrosis. It's going to be terrible. Had her, the team of doctors ready to take her away from us when she was born, and induced her, I think at 35 weeks. And she was born completely healthy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. And so I would say, too, sometimes doctors are wrong.
That's what I'm about to say.
I know that's
Medicine
not the
isn't
case for
always
everyone.
correct. And I think, if you went through an entire pregnancy and a doctor tells you you're better off aborting it, that mother-child bond is already there. I feel like it almost would be more painful for a mother to abort at third trimester than it would be to have the child and, just see where it goes.
I think God has a plan for each of us, no matter how small we are. Also, on the kind of the basics of medicine, because I do want to go into medicine later on, it's progressing so rapidly, and the thought of having an abortion, and then maybe a week later, maybe even a few days later, there being a cure found for a genetic disease or something, I don't see why we wouldn't go that.
It seems like lately in the news and in the media that there has been more pressure from the liberal perspective on this issue to allow abortion under any circumstance at any time, even post-birth, which I guess by definition doesn't mean abortion. Now, is that just something I'm picking up on, or is that actually valid data that there is more people?
I agree, there's definitely a press. I think you see that in the mainstream media. I think, however, they've changed kind of the argument
will spin the argument as it's a human right violation to take away that right to, into pregnancy. But at that point, it's not just your right. That child it's a life, and they have rights. And that is, I think it's a common argument that people face when trying to debate the pro-life, pro-choice is, you're taking away my rights if I can't have an abortion. But what about the child's rights? Your irresponsibility is not,
And unfortunately, currently our laws state that an unborn child does not have insurance.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that helps the pro-choice.
I think the idea in itself is hypocritical because there's two ways that a baby can be seen. It can be infinite worth and it can be absolute non-existent worth. Because the second that a car crash kills a mother and her baby, it's counted as two counts of murder,
Right.
and that is counted as a separate life, a separate entity. And yet, the second that a mother decides she doesn't want to carry the baby, its worth is
Makes no sense.
non-existent.
Did you see anything in your research on the influence of the father in the choice to abort or the impact
I
of abortion
actually
on
did. I found a story of I think this one was in a car crash and she was pregnant and she was pretty much brain dead and they kept on trying to abort the babies and he said absolutely not. And so they put her on life support until the babies were viable to be outside, survived outside the womb. And then they did a C-section and took the babies out, put them in a NICU, and then they kind of took the woman off life support.
Those extraordinary measures
Yes.
to save.
He's like, I'm not gonna have just because my wife's brain dead, I'm not gonna have our children.
statistic-wise, though, on the father pushing towards an abortion or saying no and the woman wanting one, I didn't really find a lot. I know nearly 85% of abortions occur due to the woman being unmarried. So I think there's probably a lot of fluctuation on whether the man even knows. I'm sure there's a lot of cases where the father has no idea she's ever pregnant.
I did find a study that included 100 women, 75 of whom were married or in a committed relationship, who got abortions, and 46% agreed that the abortion provoked a major crisis in the lives of them and their spouse. So obviously there was some sort of unleveling there.
I think Millie quoted the statistic earlier, but 31% of women cited a partner-related reason as their reason for abortion. So while I think there's both sides of the coin, I think some men have a very big impact on the decision of the abortion, and I think some, are oblivious to it.
Can a man, unmarried or not, stop a woman from getting an abortion?
What about their parents?
Okay, so depends on the age. Depends on the age and depends on the state. So parental involvement required for minors. Some states just require a notice to the parent that this is happening, and some require consent. For someone who's not a minor, that obviously can't be done anything. Some require consent and notice, so it just varies by state.
I believe that's 9, I may be counting wrong here, have no notification, no law, or no consent given to the parents.
Which legally, I know here at least, I don't know if it's different in other states, when a girl turns 17, her reproductive health is private. So if a 17-year-old happened to go to the OBGYN, they have no legal reason to contact her parents on procedures that she may be receiving.
Okay. I asked earlier, and it may just be that you didn't come across it, but if you have a perspective to share, I'd like to hear it. What do you think a Christian response to those who have had abortions would look like?
I don't have any specific evidence, but I think that we should be accepting, forgiving, but we should be convicting in the sense that we shouldn't be allowing it. We should be encouraging people to make a more, moral choice that lines up with our worldview. I don't think we should penalize those or socially disgrace them or anything like that. I think we should be loving and accepting of their past mistakes and just accept that it is a part of them, but definitely encourage them to make better choices.
I agree. I think that you know, if you look at situations, say a Christian teen girl got pregnant and had the child, most of the time people are eventually loving and accepting of that mother and that child. And I think that even if she happens to make the mistake of getting an abortion, you know, there's forgiveness and there's grace that can be given there. But I do think that there is a convicting aspect to it that has to be pushed upon, because if you're just loving and you're just forgiving and it's okay, you made a mistake, then what's stopping it from happening again?
Coming from a more personal perspective, someone in my family, like 20 years ago, had an abortion, and my parents, there was a period of time where they really were not accepting of that, and they really had to work to move past that. And the thing about it is she suffers the most psychological damage from it. So there's not really any outside perspective that is going to force her in one direction. She already knows that it was a mistake, and there's not really anything to do to change it.
Just a kind of a follow-up question to some of that. I think based on some of the statistics that you said, I think you said 85% of abortions were done by unwed women. Is that what you said? So based on that statistic, what's something that the church can do, not necessarily for women after they've had an abortion, but what's something the church can do to help prevent women to go that route?
I think,
Especially 70% of those women are supposedly Christians.
yeah, I think there can be reformation in the way that abstinence is preached and pushed. You know, I think in the cultural society that we're in today, it's a really hard thing to push on, especially, I mean, 50% of those 85 are under the age of 24. So in college, those are college-aged women, late high school, college age. And that's a hard, you know, societal culture to be in and be pushed towards abstinence. So I think that making women aware of their birth control options, making them aware of the consequences of this, that if you get pregnant and you think, oh, I'll just have an abortion, that there's consequences for that. It's not just you have one and you forget it ever happened.
Yeah, I'm just kind of processing the question. Can you repeat it?
Just in consideration of some of the statistics, so 85% of the women that are having abortions are unmarried. They don't have a spouse. And even you said earlier that the population is similar to the population in the country, where 70% of the country supposedly claims to Christians, whatever that means. That being the case, what are some things that churches can do maybe to help prevent, or help partner with women to prevent this, not to help afterwards, but to help prevent this end result?
So I'm with Ellie in the fact that education is a very big piece. I think abstinence, only sexual education is is the ideal route, but I think it's also not effective at this point. I think that if you are going to teach and preach abstinence, you have to do it with the understanding that things do happen and people do make the wrong decisions, and teaching them how to cope with those decisions before they reach the point of being pregnant and having to decide on whether or not to have an abortion. I think that's very important. I also think that kind of, if a woman has become pregnant and she's unmarried and she is now considering abortion, I think a lot of it is she's going to obviously suffer a lot of backlash, a lot of pressure from people, from, you know, having intercourse or having sexual relations outside of wedlock. And I think that not reducing that shame, but making it more of an open dialogue, like, yes, you messed up, yes, you've sinned, but there are other ways that we can go about this. You don't have to abort that child.
Can I build on that point with a question?